Welcome to another edition of the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake. He is Leo Haggerty of Night Sports Productions, and, well, they made it
All
close.
good things must come to an end.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. The Buccaneers fall to the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're here live at Raymond James Stadium, 30-27, and Fitzpatrick for the night, 30 for 50, 411 yards, which is an NFL record, because there's never been a quarterback in NFL history to throw for 400 yards in 3 consecutive games, but he had 3 crucial interceptions. And in this game,
one of them was his fault. 2 of them were deflections. So give the Steelers some credit. They came in with a good game plan. But, again, turnovers. They left at least 10 points, maybe even more on the field, and that was the killer.
Yeah, absolutely. The killer, sloppy first half by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think one of the keys coming into this game, we knew that Pittsburgh was going to be desperate for a win. They came out. They absolutely acted like they were desperate for a win at this point, and they took advantage of those opportunities.
Absolutely, and the Bucs self-destructed on a lot of them. And, again, we look at what happened tonight. Yeah, the offense came back in the second half, too little, too late. But by then, the defense had been on the field so long. When you needed a crucial stop at the end, they just didn't have the gas left to stop the Steelers, and they ran out the clock.
Yeah, absolutely. Ran out the clock. Again, a great comeback by the Bucs, but it falls short. And, again, too many turnovers in the first half. Very sloppy tackling defensively, which leads to a 75-yard touchdown by Vance McDonald, which was not good at all. Missed tackle by Chris Conte basically gets trucked.
Absolutely. Gets trucked, gets knocked down. It looked like an MMA move. Yeah. But what bothered me the most was the scheme. And Peter, I was telling you up there that they were trying to cover the tight end with a free safety, and the McDonald had a free release twice in the first quarter.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he just caught the ball, and that was him and Conte, and that was the problem. The big problem with the Buccaneers was they were forced to play so many young guys in the secondary. You had Stewart back there. You had Evans back there.
Yeah.
And Stewart was second in the team in tackles because Ben Roethlisberger just decided to pick on number 36.
Absolutely. So what you're watching right now is the Sports Web post-game show live from Raymond James Stadium.
Monday morning. No, Tuesday morning.
Night football.
Tuesday morning.
And it was kind of a disappointment, to say the least. So just looking at Bucs Report right now, we're here live as the Buccaneers fall to the Pittsburgh Steelers 30-27. I thought tackling was poor tonight. I thought in some stretches in this game, the defense definitely got after Ben Roethlisberger. A couple sacks by GP, half a sack by Gerald McCoy and Vinny Curry. But in situations, they still allowed too much time to a good quarterback like Ben Roethlisberger, and he made him pay.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm not going to dispute that, because there were times that Ben made plays with his feet to extend the plays, but a lot of times that ball was out in a hurry.
Yeah.
And again, because of the Buccaneers scheme, you could see what Pittsburgh was doing. Let's get it out to our playmakers. Let's get it out to Schuster. Let's get it out to Antonio Bryant. Let's get it to McDonald. Let's get it to James Conner. Let them get some yak after the play. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the problem, that the Bucs didn't tackle well, and those 3-4-yard passes became 14, 15-yard passes.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it comes down to the sloppy first half. You can't turn over the ball 4 times and give a good team or a desperate team like the Steelers an opportunity to win, because they're going to kill you every time. And they took advantage of the Buccaneer mistakes. And what did we talk about the first 2 games, ladies and gentlemen? They kept the pocket clean. They didn't do that tonight, and they turned over the ball in key situations, and the Steelers made them pay.
And 2 very crucial plays, the pick 6 by the Steelers and the punt return by the Buccaneers that was called back for a hold that probably shouldn't even have occurred, because it was 50 yards from the return. So I was totally confused with that. And And let's be honest, Peter, the referees are having a tough time too.
I got a question for everybody out there watching NFL football right now. In fact, I got a question for the NFL in general. Can you touch a quarterback anymore? Because in this game, there were 4 unsportsmanlike
at least 4
the passer penalties in the first half. And we're talking about just normal hits, and you're calling these 15-yard penalties. And it was on both sides. It wasn't just for the Bucs. It was the Steelers. It was absolute awful officiating by the refs. On top of it, the Chris Godwin play where it looks like he gets a touchdown.
Yeah,
was he touched or was he not?
What they were saying was when he dove out, his foot may have inadvertently hit the defensive back, which I thought was a stretch on replay to see that.
Right.
But he definitely got back up before someone touched him. And again, if I'm a referee, I'm calling the NFL and say, hey, look, you're making me look bad.
Yeah.
Because I got to call this. And it's not football. I mean, we saw Clay Matthews over the weekend.
Yeah.
We saw it tonight.
I mean,
they're good football players.
You feel bad for Clay Matthews because you can't hit a quarterback high. You can't hit a quarterback low. Honestly, I felt after this game you can't hit a quarterback at all. Just put a red jersey on him at this point because it was ridiculous.
Treat him like a punter.
I'm serious.
We just go in and put your hands up and say, okay. And it's kind of like in Canada with that 5-yard circle on the return guy.
Yes.
They're going to put a 5-yard circle around this guy.
Right,
so
let's go out to the texting line here. Of course, we're on Bucs Report. I'm your host, Peter Blake, host of the only FM sports talk show in the Tampa Bay area on Saturday afternoons from 3 to 6 on WTAN 106.1 FM, 1340 AM with my co-host Leo Haggerty, former coach, scout, and now media member of Night Sports Productions. And let's go out to the Bucs.
While you're reading that, Peter, one thing we'd be remiss if we didn't say,
yeah.
Tony Dungy being inducted into the Ring of Honor.
And I'll tell you right now, with Dungy being inducted into the Ring of Honor, what was one of the things he's always preached when he was a coach of the Buccaneers? No mental mistakes, and the Buccaneers kept on shooting themselves in the foot tonight. A lot of mental mistakes. It was disappointing, but it was nice to see Tony Dungy, a Hall of Fame coach, being inducted into the Buccaneer Ring of Honor. You cannot say enough about Mr.
And
Dungy.
humble as usual.
Absolutely. Some of the most boring press conferences of all time. But I tell you right now, in order to turn the Buccaneers around, it was being consistent and not committing dumb mental mistakes, and the Buccaneers didn't do that tonight. So let's go out to the Facebook Buccaneer Report text line. 2-1 is nothing to be ashamed of at all, but I'm a bit disappointed in the Bucs' first half performance. Absolutely. You get down 30-13, and look, we knew that the Steelers were going to come into this game desperate. They had to have a win. With all the commotion during the week with Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell and reports that Mike Tomlin lost the locker room, they had to have a win. And again, I go back to it. If you commit turnovers, a team that's desperate like the Steelers is going to take advantage of it, and they did.
And we didn't even talk about clock management at the end of the first half,
Yes.
where the Buccaneers get out and score but leave too much time on the clock.
Absolutely.
And twice inside the 5-yard line have to come away with field goals.
All right. Somebody says, fire Mike Smith, coordinator Tuesday morning, please. Again, I'm not sure if it was Mike Smith. This was a collective unit. At times, again, I think the offense put the defense on short fields.
Yeah.
I thought the defense in some instances in this game
After the first half,
After the first half.
Yeah. And let's
Even in the first half.
Yeah, and
still the Buccaneers turned over the ball. Godwin, who is going to be a special player in this league, make no mistake about it, but he had some mistakes tonight that really cost this team. Some drop passes and that fumble that gave Pittsburgh another opportunity.
Yeah, and keep in mind, give the Steelers a lot of credit for recognizing what the Bucs were trying to do on defense and then totally taking advantage of it with the tight end.
James says there's some positives to take away. The defensive line was pretty good, especially JPP. Absolutely, I think he was. That penalty was called for tonight. I get it. They're cracking down on, touching the helmet. Maybe
that was a soccer dive, though.
It's almost ridiculous. He still had 2 sacks in this game, so good point, James. Do you believe in magic? Look, there's a reason why Fitzpatrick is a backup quarterback in this league. I don't think the offensive line helped him out, but in some of those throws, you cannot make those throws in this league. They're going to cost you. I still say, and I'll take this back because I wrote this on Facebook, they start Winston. I actually agree with you. I think what they do, they start Fitzpatrick versus that tough defense because Chicago is going to bring it with Khalil Mack. It's going to be a tough defense.
Especially with only 2 days of practice.
Right, and you give Winston 2 weeks to get ready. I still think, and again, if anybody thought that Fitzpatrick was the quarterback of the future, You ride the hot hand. I think the hot hand went out, although the second half
not yet. Not yet.
Right.
I tell you, if he goes into Chicago and puts another 400-yard game on the board,
Right.
I tell you, that's 1,200 yards in 4 games. Do the math.
Right.
That's a 6,000-yard season.
And again, look, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, they got a good defense. Again,
And the 3-4 definitely gave it.
Always gives the
Buccaneers trouble.
problems. And what you're listening to right now is the post-game show live here at Raymond James Stadium. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with Leo Haggerty of the Sports Web Live here on Bucs Report. Let's take some more questions here. James says Fitzpatrick is still the quarterback next week for me. I think that's possible. We weren't good in the first half, plain and simple. I agree with that, Nate. The refs threw flags like they had terrible towels. Terrible. Just terrible. That's good. That's good, Charles Barkley. Let's see here. If Conti didn't get ran over, it could have been a different story. Look.
Nah, it was early in the game.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
I think I'm pretty much ready to move on without Conti. I'm ready to see the kid Whitehead. You got to make better tackles. And we talked about tonight, the return of Brent Grimes. He looked a little rusty. 27-yard touchdown to Antonio Brown. That's a tackle you have to make. Brown just runs right past him. Terrible effort on the tackle. Again, Brent Grimes hasn't played this year, so his first game, so you knew he was going to be rusty.
And again, I'm more worried about the scheme than I was anything else.
Right.
On Antonio Brown's,
I get it. You respect
even Earl Christie said the same thing. What are they doing? And then, and again, let's give credit to the Pittsburgh Steelers and Ben Roethlisberger, recognizing what the Bucs were doing, changing the play, and finding the open guy and finding that little seam.
Right, absolutely. So we're live here on Bucs Report. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with Leo Haggerty, as we're talking about the loss by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 30-27.
Peter, while you're looking there real quick,
yes,
let's talk about Chicago.
Yes.
Okay? The Bears, all of a sudden, with Khalil Mack, have become a force in that NFC North. The Bucs are going to go into this game, and they're going to have some sort of game plan to make sure they know where Mack is. And I'll tell you what, they got 2 other pretty good linebackers there with them.
Right, absolutely. You got 2 other good linebackers at this point. It's going to be a challenge to go to Chicago and face that. It really is. So the Buccaneers are going to have to do a better job of protection. They didn't do enough of that tonight.
Yeah, and let's be real here. If we'd be standing here right now saying the Bucs are 2-1, and the 1 is an AFC opponent,
right,
and they played 3 playoff teams, one of them being the Super Bowl champs, and they're 2-1, I think I'd have taken that in August real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, to expect a 3-0 start. I mean, again, Pittsburgh was desperate for a win. They get a win, but you have to feel good about the opportunity. But I think the Buccaneers as a team left a lot of points on the board. If you don't turn over the ball, if you don't make those critical mistakes, and yet you still had a chance to win that game at the end of it, couldn't pull it out.
Yeah, and real quick while you're looking up another question, ladies and gentlemen, here's what's bothering me about these roughing the passer calls. About week 6 or 7, you may get a defensive lineman who just says, you know what, I'm getting tired of getting flagged, or Clay Matthews or somebody. I'm going to earn this 15-yarder, and I'm going to take it, and I'm going to plant this guy in the ground. And that's what you're seeing, a lot of frustration on defensive linemen, linebackers. People just don't know how to tackle a quarterback anymore because I don't think you can.
Yeah, somebody says Justin Evans looked sharp. Absolutely. I think he made an interception.
Nice interception.
He's shown his ball hawking abilities. I thought that it was tough for the secondary because, again, you have Ben Roethlisberger 30 for 38, 353 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception, which by Evans. But, again, there were stretches in this game where it looked like the defense didn't do enough to get enough pressure on Roethlisberger.
Yeah, and when you look at the first quarter, he was 11 of 13. 11 were caught by the Steelers. 1 was caught by the Buccaneers. So he had 1 incompletion the whole first quarter. So, again, we saw Big Ben being Big Ben.
Right, exactly. So somebody said, I didn't realize JPP was so strong that he could put Big Ben on the ground with the hand slapped to his helmet. Wow, gotta love those roughing the passer calls. I want to ask you people out there that are watching this right now from Bucs Report, do you like these new penalty calls that the NFL is basically enforcing? This referee crew tonight, honestly.
And I feel bad for him. I mean,
they get paid for this?
Well, yeah, but I feel bad for him if they got to enforce these rules. I mean, I can't believe if Pete doesn't go back and go, hey, you're making us look bad here.
Right, exactly.
And it's just, you can't have that as an official where you're making, 6 or 7 calls that were roughing the passer. And one was legit, and that was because JPP was leaning over the tackle, reaching for the ball, and got a helmet.
Right, exactly. So we're live here at Raymond James Stadium. I'm your host, Peter Blake, host of the only FM sports talk show in the Tampa Bay area on Saturday afternoons from 3 to 6, the Sports Web, the evolution of sports talk radio. We give you your own welcome music. We let you call in twice, and we don't hang up on you like those other sports talk shows do on WTAN 106.1 FM and 1340 AM, along with my co-host, Mr. Leo Haggerty of Night Sports.
And one thing, Peter, again, folks, at about 6:45 tonight, we didn't know if this game was going to start on time. I'll tell you, we had a deluge and a lightning storm that defied belief. And again, it was so bad they shut the parking lots down. We couldn't even get here. And again, the field, I don't know if you can see behind us, but it's pretty torn up. South Florida played here Saturday, and I think they sodded the middle of the field, and you could see a lot of people were having, in fact, the Cameron Brate touchdown.
Yeah.
Steelers guy fell down the end zone, so it's, yeah.
Absolutely. Somebody says, can we find Raheem Morris and put him back as defensive backs coach?
They're young guys. They're young guys.
Young guys. Is coming out of injury. He looked rusty tonight. Didn't have one of his best games. I think he'll be better than he was.
And who ran into the wall? Was that Davis or was that?
I think that was Isaiah Johnson.
Oh, my Lord.
Carlton Davis tonight.
Yeah.
He had some good coverage on Antonio Brown, and it's a lot to ask a rookie that you draft in the second round to go out and challenge one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. That's a tough task. I mean, again,
and he's knows where he's going on a wet track.
Right.
That's the big thing.
Exactly. So, with that being said, mistakes, they work on them. Defense played better in the second half. The young corners will continue to get better each week. Good future in the team. Absolutely. I think that's an astute analysis by Vince here on Buck. Of course,
and Vince, real quick, there were 3 or 4 times where the Buccaneers defensive line had a shot at trying to get Big Ben down. And again, they call him Big Ben for a reason. The man is massive. You're not talking about knocking down a 6-foot, 180-pound quarterback. He's about 6'4", maybe 6'5", and about 230. So it's a big man.
It is a big man. Absolutely a big man at this point.
And you got to be happy the way the Bucs came back. Yeah. They could have folded to 10 at halftime, down 30-10. And it was something that we didn't see in the past. So this could have real easily got to about, 42-14 or something like that, or 17. Yes. And the Bucs defense kept them in the game. The offense scored. And again, just bad penalties, bad mental errors, bad mistakes, costing the game.
Yeah.
The Steelers didn't win. The Bucs lost.
Bucs lost, and again with all the unforced errors, all the forced errors, I should say, not unforced.
Yeah, they're forced.
It was forced by the Pittsburgh Steelers. They still had a chance to win the game. You still had Fitzpatrick. So what do you guys think? Give me your analysis. Do you think Fitzpatrick starts versus the Chicago Bears? Or are you ready to go back to Jameis Winston because the suspension ends tomorrow? Are you still believing what you said a couple weeks ago that you think Winston, they're going to start him after the bye week?
I think you got to let Fitzpatrick have another game, only because you got the day off tomorrow for the players. You got to practice Wednesday, Thursday. Friday is a lost cause because of what you're doing. So I think you got to stick with Fitzpatrick. And again, if he goes up to Chicago and wins, it's all about winning football games. If he's 3-1, which is something no one expected to happen at the beginning of the year, if he's 3-1, we're talking about somebody you really got to go for another game or two. But let's be honest, Jameis Winston is the future of this franchise.
Absolutely.
He deserves to drive this bus now, but right now he's a rider. He's not a driver.
Absolutely. I agree with that. So we're live here at Raymond James Stadium on Bucs Report. I'm your host, Peter Blake of the Sports Web, the only FM sports talk show in the Tampa Bay area, along with Leo Haggerty on Saturday afternoons from 3 to 6 on the Tan Talk Sports Network.
Let's get some good questions, and we're running out of time here.
of time. They're about to shut the lights down. Johnson should have stayed glued to the wall. He smacked into. He would have had that punt return on the board. That didn't sound too good.
We're still looking to try to find where that hold was.
Right.
You know, it was
that was a key point in the game. It looked like Deshaun Jackson got the punt return touchdown. Of course, the referees came through once again, calling a flag. It looked like on the replay there were some blocks in the back.
Yeah, but they call for holding. That's
right.
I'm going. Wait
Holding,
a second.
blocks in the back. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But still,
And the Bucs did come down and score. The big thing was it took 2.5 more minutes, and that was a hurt.
Absolutely. So let's get some more questions here. What are they going to give us that we can really use besides late picks?
For who?
I don't know what that's referred to. Where was MJ Stewart tonight? You mentioned this in the press box. You thought that they were picking on him a lot.
Oh, big time.
There's a lot of teams. I think Philadelphia did that. That's going to be growing pains. But from what you see with him the last couple games, do you think he has enough to make this? I mean, does he look slow at times?
No, they're making double moves on him.
Okay.
And folks, watch. If you tape the game, watch. Schuster would go run a quick in, stop, and come back out. And again, that's the toughest for a defensive back is a double move because now the quarterback's got time to throw it. And that was tough.
We got Travis Faley on the line here.
Oh.
Sports and Entertainment, our buddy here, he held him and spun and didn't release at the line. So I guess
The problem was the flag was thrown 20 yards down the field. That was crazy.
What's going on tonight? I get it. The Steelers travel well, but it seemed like there were a lot of yellow flags, and it wasn't just the penalty flags. It was the terrible towels out here tonight. That wasn't encouraging. But, again, you know, Steeler fans, they always travel well. It's traditional. Plus, it was Tony Dungy night. Not only did Tony Dungy coach the Buccaneers,
he played.
But he also played for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
All right, real quick, your trivia question.
Yes.
So you can answer it real quick, and then as soon as we get an answer, we're going to leave.
Travis is not true, Leo. That's what he's saying.
I'll stop, Travis. Where did Tony Dungy go to college, and what position did he play?
All right, I got it.
I know you do. No. We got to wait.
So
We're watching here for somebody to have an answer.
The question right now: what college did Tony Dungy play at?
And what position? And if you get it right, you're the first caller on Saturday, right?
Well, yeah, we'll give you a segment one of these days on the sports.
Absolutely.
About that, because you can call in twice. We give you your own walk of music, and we don't hang up on you like those other sports talk shows do in the Tampa Bay area. We got to get a running game. I agree with that, but I think honestly,
the score dictated
30-13. 8 carries for 33 yards.
He had 4.1. Right. It's what you want. You want 4 yards.
Right. Exactly. I think the defenses start clicking. I think at times tonight they looked good defensively. They got after Roethlisberger, and then I think there were times where, like you said, Grimes was playing off. They didn't get enough pressure. Again, Roethlisberger, it's a good quarterback, and there's a reason because, you know, not only is he accurate, but he can also scale the pocket. He looks for his open wide receivers, and if you give a quarterback more than 3 to 5 seconds, we know about that.
Oh yeah, and let's be honest. 3 games they played Drew Brees, Nick Foles, who won the Super Bowl, and Ben Roethlisberger. 3 guys that have multiple Super Bowls between the 3 of them. So again, it wasn't an easy road to hoe, and the Buccaneers got 2 of them.
Absolutely. Somebody says, what are your thoughts about Bay not playing yet? Why rush him back? He's your first-round pick at this point. It seems like that injury, the calf injury, is really serious. So I'm not.
He was limited practice this week.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So you hope that you have him back for the Bears game, but if he's not healthy, why take the chance?
Yeah, and it's
how many injuries did you see yesterday in the NFL? Knee injuries alone. I mean, can you imagine?
Ask the 49ers.
Right, and somebody mentions that the 49ers, and I've seen something crazy tonight. Somebody was telling me, watch for the 49ers to try to contact the Bucs and trading Winston. That's ridiculous, right? They're not going to trade.
No.
Jameis Winston is not going to be traded from this team to the 49ers.
If they're going to make a move, it's going to be with Philadelphia to see if Nick Foles is available. That makes the only sense to what's going on. But again, if you look at how Garoppolo got hurt, he thought he was going to go out of bounds, changed his mind, turned it up, and the old knee went out.
Exactly. So let's see here. Again, you got to have a running game, better safe than sorry with our first round pick. I agree. I absolutely agree with that, Nate. So again, you know, for me, Buccaneers lose tonight, but if you told me the first 3 games that you were going to be 2-1,
And the 2 would be against Philadelphia and New Orleans.
and you win both of those games, you lose to the Steelers, and you still have a chance to win, I would say okay. Now you got your work cut out for you against the Chicago Bears. What do you see in this matchup? Of course, the obvious is Khalil Mack. You got to block him. You're going to have to really do a good job on him because he's a game wrecker. He really. The Oakland Raiders, what were they thinking, honestly?
Yeah, well, put 27 up on the board in Chicago, you got to win.
Right.
Because Mitchell Trubisky can't put 27 on the board right now.
But although that defense for the Bucs is,
Well, yeah, you just did, but you don't have an Antonio Brown up in Chicago.
Right.
That's the big thing.
Exactly, and I think they kept him in check tonight too.
And you don't have a Ben Roethlisberger running the show either.
You don't. You're absolutely right. So, look. They may have an opportunity here to beat Chicago. It's going to be a tough game. I think we're going to end it here. No more questions here on Bucs Report, but we'll keep on doing this for you.
And the answer to the trivia question is?
Well, we got nobody that answered it, so I'm going to give you the answer.
Here it comes.
He played for Minnesota.
Yes, he did. He was a Golden Gopher.
And he played quarterback.
He was a quarterback for Cal Stahl out of Minnesota.
And he actually changed positions because he wanted to play for the Steelers. He had a chance to go to Montreal and play with Marv Levy, but he didn't want to play quarterback. He wanted to play with the best. That's why Tony Dungy is a Hall of Famer. That's why he's in the Ring of Honor tonight. We're here live at Raymond James Stadium. I'm your host, Peter Blake. He is
Leo Haggerty from Night Sports Productions.
And we are giving you something to think about. Guys, keep on joining us on Bucs Report. And, of course, tune in to the evolution of Sports Talk Radio on Saturday afternoons from 3 to 6. Bring your passion. Bring your excitement. Just don't bring any nonsense. Good night from Raymond James Stadium.
And we will talk to you Sunday morning, October 21st, when the Buccaneers host the Cleveland Browns.
Good night from Raymond James Stadium. I'm your host, Peter Blake.
Leo Haggerty.
Something to think about.